Hi, this is Annie. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be making this beautiful flowering dogwood granny square. The flowering dogwood is the state flower of both North Carolina and Virginia, and this granny square is part of my state flower granny square project. Two things before we get started with the tutorial. First of all, this is an easy intermediate level tutorial. So if you know basic crochet stitches and techniques, I'm sure you can follow along with this tutorial. However, if you're very new to crochet, I would recommend you start with one of my beginner-friendly tutorials before moving on to this one. A second thing to mention is that this is my original design. You are more than welcome to use the squares that you make with this tutorial in any of your crochet projects. I just ask that you give me credit for the design. And I will include super simple guidelines in the description of this video on how you can do that. To make this granny square, you are going to need 3 different colors of yarn. I am using this Hobby Rainbow 88 100% cotton yarn. This is a number 3 lightweight yarn. And with this yarn and my tension, the granny square ends up being about 4 by 4 inches. And in terms of colors, if you want to make your granny square in 3 different colors like I've done here, feel free to pick any 3 colors that you like. A fun fact about the flowering dogwood is that the actual flower part is this very center part. And these 4 kind of like petal-like things are actually not petals. They're called bracts. So a type of leaf. But either way, obviously this flower is absolutely gorgeous. So go ahead and pick whatever 3 colors you want to use for your square. Then you're also going to need a crochet hook, one that matches the yarn that you picked, a yarn needle for weaving in your ends, and a pair of scissors. So we are going to start our granny square from the middle. So we'll make that center first. So pick whatever color you want to use for the center, and we'll get started. I'm going to start by making a slip knot. And I chain 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And then I will slip stitch into this very first stitch here to turn this into a circle. So slip stitch into that first stitch. And I will chain 2 stitches. And now for the center, or for the actual flower part, I guess, we are going to work 6 half double crochets around that ring. And this chain 2 that I just chained here is going to count as my first half double crochet. So I need 5 actual half double crochets. So I go yarn over, and then I go ahead and find the center. It's not this obvious opening there, it's right underneath it. It becomes easier after the first stitch. Here we go. 3 loops on my hook, and I pull through all 3 to make a half double crochet. Yeah, so it gets a lot easier after this first one. Now I can see the center there. Of course, if you prefer to start your granny squares with a magic ring or any other way, you can of course do that too. But this is how I start mine, and I just work 6 half double crochets including the chain 2. So yarn over, insert in the middle, pull the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through 3. I think my yarn split there. Yep, we're gonna do that again. Yarn over, insert in the middle, pull the yarn through, yarn over and pull through 3. I already have 4, so I just need 2 more. Half double crochets. Alrighty. Pull the stitches a little bit to make sure they are a little more evenly spaced out on that ring. Alrighty, so I have my 6 half double crochets around this ring, including that initial chain 2. And now I'll just go ahead and join this round with a slip stitch. And I go here into that first stitch there, kind of on the outside edge. And I slip stitch there. And pull the yarn through. And now let's double check my stitches. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I count the stitch that I just slip stitched into as my 6th stitch that I need for my next round. I chain 1, and then I can fasten off this color. Might need to pull this a little bit again, just to make sure that our 6 stitches there are a little more evenly spaced out. Here we go. So next we are going to bring in the color that we want to use for the bracts. I am using this white color, and I'm going to attach my yarn with a slip knot. Of course, as always, if you have a different way of attaching your yarn that you prefer, absolutely do it your way. This is just how I do it. All right, slip knot on my hook. And then we're going to attach our yarn into one of these stitches here on the outside. So I currently have 6 stitches on the outside from the previous round that I'm going to be working into for this round. So one of these stitches, doesn't really matter which one, I'm starting here where I have the previous yarn end because I am using my weaving as you go method. I will link to a separate tutorial in the description if you want to check it out, not to spend too much time on this one to explain it. Okay, so I attach my yarn there. I always like to turn my work here and just pull that yarn end tight. And I am going to chain 1. And now for this round, all I'm going to be doing is I'm creating 2 single crochet stitches into each one of these stitches of the previous round. So I will have a total of 12 single crochets around the flower. So I'm currently here, I chained 1. I attached my yarn and chained 1, and now this chain 1 is not going to count as anything. Okay, so that just brings up to the right height, but it doesn't count as a stitch. So I need 2 more single crochets into this same stitch. Oops, sorry, almost made a half double crochet there. So right into the same stitch, pull the yarn through, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through 2. Single crochet, and then I need another single crochet into the same stitch. Here we go. So in that first stitch I attached the yarn, I chained 1, that doesn't count as anything, and I made 2 single crochets into that same stitch. And then I'm going to move on to the next stitch here on the outside. So it's straight into the next stitch. And I make a single crochet. And another single crochet into the same stitch. Here we go. So I have 4 so far because I've made 2 single crochets into each one of those 2 stitches. So I need to work all around the center. So I have 4 more stitches here on the outside, and I'll work 2 single crochets into each one of those. So go ahead and work all around yours, 2 single crochets into each one of the stitches of the previous round, and then meet me back here. All right, I have worked all around the center, and I now have 12 single crochets around the center. And I'm going to join this round with a slip stitch here into that very first stitch here on the outside edge. So this one right here. It's on top of the first single crochet we have there. So I'll just go straight into that stitch and slip stitch. And next we are going to start working on the bracts. So we are creating these 4 petal-like bracts, and we're going to use 2 rounds to make each one of these. So first we work kind of like an inner layer, and then after that we work the outer layer that really creates this beautiful, beautiful shape for the bract. So we're going to start with the inner layer. And I'm going to start right from this stitch where I just slip stitch into. So the first stitch on the outside edge that's sitting on top of my first single crochet there. I slip stitch there. And I'm going to start my round from right this spot. And I'm going to start by chaining 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now I'm going to work my way down from here with single crochet stitches. So I'm going to start in the second stitch here, counting from my hook. So my hook is here. This is the first stitch. I skip that one and I go into the second stitch and I work a single crochet into that stitch. So skip that and just go straight into the second one. Pull the yarn through, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through 2. Then I move on to the next one, and here you want to be careful because the stitch that I just made that single crochet into, I can see like a big opening still here. I don't want to make another one into that same stitch. I want to move on to the next stitch here and make another single crochet there. So I have 2 so far. I move on to the next one. Again, careful not to make another one in the same stitch you just made the previous one too. But into the next one. I have 3 so far. I move on to the next one. Again, I'm careful with this very obvious opening here. I don't make another one into that one. I move on to the next one. 4 single crochets and 1 more, and again, not into that same one. Into the next one. A single crochet. So you should now have 5 single crochets coming back. If you still have stitches left here, that means that you may have made multiple into one of those, and you might need to backtrack a little bit and redo those stitches. So we have 6 stitches going up. We skip the first one from the hook and we work 5 single crochets coming down. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the next 3 stitches here on the outside. So now again, careful, my bract starts from here, from this one here. I'm not going to slip stitch into that one. I'm going to go into this one and make my first slip stitch there to secure this bract or a start of a bract. Slip stitch And then I make 2 more slip stitches into the next 2 stitches here on the outside. So 1 and 2. Here we go. So I have my first, or the start of my first bract here. So I worked those 5 single crochets and then I made 3 slip stitches here. And now right from the spot where I have the 3rd slip stitch, I will start my next bract. So chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I work 5 single crochets coming down. So I skip the first one from the hook and I go into the second one. Single crochet. So I work 5 single crochets coming down. And just like with the previous one, I'm careful not to go twice into the same stitch. Three, 4, and 5. And then I slip stitch into the next 3 stitches again. So again, not into this one where this bract starts, but into the second one there. This one. Or I mean, it's the first stitch after this bract. So bract is here, and this is the first stitch after that. So it's just a slip stitch there to secure that bract. And then 2 more slip stitches. Go into the next one and slip stitch. And into the next one and slip stitch. So again, I completed the bract, 6 chain stitches going up, 5 single crochets coming down, and then 3 slip stitches. And now I start my next bract right from here. So go ahead and work 2 more bracts. If you need to see how we made the bracts, feel free to go back, rewind, see how we made these, and make the remaining 2 exactly the same way. And when you're ready to secure the 4th one, restart the video, and I will show you how we secure that last one. All right, so I have worked those 4 bracts, or start of a bract. As we can see, it doesn't look anything like this one yet, but don't worry, we will get there. I know it looks kind of funny right now. So I have just made those 5 single crochets, and I'm going to secure this one just like I did the previous ones. So I just go into that next stitch and slip stitch there. And I make 1 more slip stitch here, so into the next one. And then I stop here. So as you remember with the previous ones, we made 3 slip stitches after the bract, but now with this last one, we only make 2 slip stitches. And then we start the next round right from here. So I turn my work a little bit like this way, because I'm gonna be working here into these stitches right now. And first I'm going to work a double crochet. And to work the double crochet, I go yarn over and I insert my hook into the first stitch here. So if we look here, we will see these little openings here. They are right across from the single crochets of the previous round. So if you have a needle, or you can use your hook, pull this apart a little bit so that you can see where those openings are. And we're gonna be working our stitches right into those openings. So I go yarn over and I insert in the first opening. So single crochet on the other side is here. I see those 2 loops going into the same spot. So that's my opening. And on this side of the hook, I have 2 loops. I bring that yarn through. I have 3 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. And yarn over, pull through 2. That's a double crochet. In the next one, I will work a treble crochet. So I go yarn over twice. I insert in the same spot. So I see the single crochet on the other side. I see those 2 loops going into that same spot. I know that that is the spot I need to insert my hook into. Into that opening. Again, I see those 2 loops on this side of the hook. I pull the yarn through. Now I have 4 loops on my hook. I go yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Treble crochet. So I have a double crochet and a treble crochet here. And in the next 2 stitches, I also work a treble crochet. So yarn over twice. Again, I find the spot. Single crochet on the other side. Those loops go right there. It's this opening. 2 loops on the side of my hook. Pull the yarn through. And I complete my treble crochet. And 1 more treble crochet into the next stitch here. So same as the previous ones. I see those 2 loops going into this spot. I insert there. And I complete my treble crochet. Here we go. So far I have 1 stitch in each one of these stitches. So double crochet, treble, treble, treble. And now in the last one I will work 2 treble crochets in the same opening. So now this one is, it's a little bit harder to see, but it is this opening right here. If I look from this side, it looks the same. I have those 2 loops here on that side. Right there, that opening. So I work 2 treble crochets here. One, and then 2. So 2 treble crochets in that same spot. After those 2 treble crochets, I chain 2, 1 and 2, and now I slip stitch this chain into the same spot. So the same spot where I have these 2 treble crochets, I slip stitch after making a chain of 2 there. So into the same spot, slip stitch. This is what's going to create this shape for the bract. All right, so I slip stitch there, and now I need to get to the other side. And first of all, I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch here on the other side, and it is this one here. Now on this side, the stitches are a little bit easier to see because you see these 2 loops for each one of those single crochets. Much easier than the other side, at least in my opinion. So I go into that stitch. The first one again is a little bit tricky. So just find those 2 loops. I think my yarn is splitting there a little bit. There we go. So go under both of those loops of the first stitch. And then just slip stitch there. And now we are on the other side. And now basically for this other side, I'm going to do the exact same stitches as I did on this side that mirror this side here. So I'm going to start, I slip stitch there, and I'm going to start by chaining 2. Remember how we chained 2 here at the end to close that side. Well, now I start with that chain 2. Then I work 2 treble crochets into the same stitch. So the first stitch there. 2 treble crochets into the same stitch where I slip stitched, I chain 2, I work 2 treble crochets. And then I work a treble crochet into the next 3 stitches. So this first one here is done. I move on to the next one. Just 1 treble crochet into this one. One treble crochet into the next one, and again I'm careful here not to make multiple into these stitches here, so you might still see this opening here where you have the previous treble crochet, but just move on to the next one that doesn't have any treble crochets yet. One more treble crochet. And then I have 1 stitch left here, the last single crochet here, and I work a double crochet into that one. Just like I started with the double crochet on the other side, well, now I end with the double crochet. And then I'm going to secure this bract with a slip stitch. Excuse me. And I work that slip stitch into the second stitch here. So if we look here what we have, this is where I have the double crochet. I have 1, 2, and 3 stitches that I can see here. I go into that middle stitch, so basically I just skip the next one and work a slip stitch into the second stitch here. These might be a little bit tight because they are those slip stitches of the previous round, but it can be done. So a slip stitch there. And that secures my first bract. As we can see, it looks completely different now with that second round. And I'm going to start my next bract right from here. So where I slip stitch to secure this one, I turn my work so that I can start working up this bract. So first a double crochet into the first one here. And again, I'm working into these little openings right across from the single crochets. So those 2 loops of the single crochet go into that spot. That's where I want to insert my hook. Pull the yarn through and complete my double crochet. In the next 3, I will work a treble crochet. So yarn over twice, and I go into the next space here, little opening right across from this single crochet. And make sure you have those 2 loops on this side of the hook. This took me a while to figure out where the right spot is, so it might take some practice. My first flowers this way would turn out so wonky because I was making the stitches all over the place. Okay, so single crochet, both of those loops go into that opening. That's where I want to insert. A treble crochet. And 1 more treble crochet. And now I have my last stitch here, and I want to work 2 treble crochets into that same stitch or into that same opening. So again, the last opening here, work 2 treble crochets into that one. And a second one. And then to complete the side, I will chain 2, 1 and 2, and I will slip stitch here into the same little opening where I have these 2 treble crochets. So just a slip stitch there. Here we go. And now I want to get to the other side. So I slip stitch into that first stitch, going under both of those loops. Slip stitch. And I chain 2 because I want this side to mirror the other side. So I chain 2 to start, and then I work 2 treble crochets into the same stitch. And another treble crochet. And then I will work a treble crochet into the next 3 stitches here. So yarn over twice, insert in the next stitch here. These are so much easier to see than those openings on the other side. There's my second treble crochet, and then 1 more treble crochet into the next stitch. And then a double crochet into the last one. So here, this is the last one. It's this one that's over the single crochet here. These 2 loops. A double crochet. And then to secure it, I do the exact same thing I did before. So this is where I have the double crochet. I skip the next stitch, and then I slip stitch into the second one. Slip stitch. Right there. And there is my second bract. And now I'm ready to start my third bract right from here. So I turn my work and I work up this inner layer of the bract and then down, just like the first 2. And we work the remaining 2 bracts exactly the same way we did these 2 first ones. So if you need to see how we made those stitches, what stitches we made, feel free to go back, rewind, and go here and watch again how we made this one and how we made that one, and make the remaining 2 bracts exactly the same way. And when you're ready to secure the last one, restart the video and meet me here. All right, I've completed my 4 bracts, and now I'm ready to close this round. So the last thing I've done here is to work that last double crochet for the bract. And now I will slip stitch this into the same stitch we've been doing before. So the second stitch, counting from here. So this is where I have the double crochet. I skip the next one and I go into the second one and work a slip stitch there to secure my last bract. All right, and then the next round, we are going to make one more round with this color. And what we're going to be doing is creating loops of chain stitches behind these bracts. We cannot see them in the final square because they get covered up with the background color. But we're going to work those loops behind the bracts so that it's easy for us to crochet the square around it. So I'm right here where I slip stitched to secure that last bract. And now I will chain 5 stitches right from this spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you might need to pull these petals down a little bit so that you see what you're doing, because these loops of chain stitches are going to be on the back side of the work. So I chained 5 there, and I will secure this chain between these 2 bracts here. So the loop starts from here, it goes over this bract, and I secure it right here. And now I like to slip stitch here. If we look what we have here, we have this one here, the last double crochet of that bract there, and then we have the first double crochet of the next bract, and between those 2 I have 1 stitch here where I have secured the bract, so the slip stitch there. And I like to go in the middle of this stitch here to pick up just one of these loops, like so. So the stitch that's right in between these 2 bracts. And then I like to pick up another loop, because I find that if I only pick up this one loop, it pulls this loop a lot. So I pick up another one, and I've been picking up this one here that's to the left from here to have 2 loops. And I just slip stitch there. And here is my first loop of chain stitches. Let's make another one. So pull the petal down a little, sorry, the bract. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, we secure here between these 2 bracts. So I find the middle stitch here, this one, and I go in the middle of it. I only pick up the back loop. I don't want to pick up the front loop because then you can see the slip stitch on the right side. So I only pick up the back loop. And then I pick up this loop that's just to the left. Now, if you find a better spot to slip stitch into that you prefer, you can of course do it your way. This I found that works for me. All right, so chain 5 to start the next one. Five, and we secure it. Again, that stitch in between the 2 bracts, I pick up the back loop only, and then I pick up this loop here to the left and slip stitch. And one more, chain 5. Here we go. And here I slip stitch right to the start of this first loop. So first loop is here. I just go into that space and I slip stitch there. And chain 1, and then we can fasten off this color. And we have our flowering dogwood here. And next we're gonna start working on the background. All right, so go ahead and grab your background color. And we are going to start by attaching this new yarn into one of those loops we just made. Again, I am attaching with the slip knots, but you can attach whichever way you prefer. And we're going to attach it here right at the beginning of one of these loops. I am still using my weaving as you go method, so I will attach it here where I have the previous yarn end. So right in the beginning of that loop. Pull that yarn end tight and chain one. All right, so now for the next round, all we are going to be doing is we are creating 9 single crochet stitches into each one of these loops. So we're essentially just covering up the loops that we just made. And I am here, I have just chained 1 stitch. Now the chain 1 is not going to count as anything. And I just work 9 single crochets into this loop. So we just go straight into that space, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2. Just simple single crochets. All right, let's see how many I got here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I need 1 more single crochet. So I have 9 single crochets in that one. And then I just move straight into the next one. So I finished my 9 single crochets here, and then I just move straight into this next loop and work my single crochet there. So I don't need to do anything in between these loops. I just move straight into the next loop to work 9 single crochets into this one as well. So just single crochets. So I'm going to let you go ahead and work around yours. So just work 9 single crochets in these 3 remaining loops. And once you're done, meet me back where we started. All right, I've worked all my single crochets all around. And I'm just going to go ahead and close this round with a slip stitch. And I go here into that very first stitch there on the outside edge. So the first stitch right there under both of those loops and slip stitch. And now I want to place the flowering dogwood on the square so that each one of these bracts is sort of pointing toward a corner. And to be able to do that, I need to start my next round at a specific spot. So the next round is what's going to turn this into a square. And I want to start my first corner so that one of these bracts is pointing toward that corner. And for that purpose, I am going to make a couple of more slip stitches here on the outside edge. And the stitch I want to get to is the 5th stitch, counting from here where these 2 bracts come together. So if we look here, this is the first one on this loop here. So these 2 loops that are sitting right on top of this last single crochet here. And this one belongs to this single crochet that's on the next loop here. So I want to start counting from here. First stitch on this loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And since I'm currently still here where I close this round in the first stitch, I need 1, 2, 3, 4 slip stitches here to get to that spot. So I just go straight into the next stitch here and slip stitch. And into the next one and slip stitch. And the next one and slip stitch. And one more, I think. I'm gonna double check in a minute to make sure I'm in the right stitch. And slip stitch there. Okay, so I count again from here. First stitch in that loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm currently here in the stitch number 5. And then on the other side, I still have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. And this one here is the first stitch on that side. So I have 4 here, and I'm here on the 5th stitch. So I still currently have 9 stitches in this loop. Do make sure that you still have your 9 stitches here. Sometimes with those slip stitches, we might accidentally lose a stitch, or, you know, anything like that can happen. So just make sure that you still have your 9 stitches here, because that's what we need as a base for the next round. 9 single crochets in each one of those loops. So I'm going to start my first corner from here. I'm going to chain 2, which counts as my first double crochet stitch. I know some people chain 3 for a double crochet, so if that's what you prefer to do, feel free to do it your way. And then I work 2 more double crochets into this very same stitch. So the same stitch where I slip stitched into, chain 2, I work 2 actual double crochets into this stitch. There's my first corner cluster. I chain 2 for the corner, and then I work 3 double crochets into the next stitch here. So it just go straight into the next one, 3 double crochets. And then that's my first corner. Next, I'm going to skip the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. I go into the 4th stitch and I work 3 double crochets into that stitch. So 3 double crochets into this same stitch. And now this is the side of my square. I skip the next 3, 1, 2, 3. I go into the 4th one and I create 3 double crochets into the 4th stitch. This is going to start my next corner. So 3 double crochets into the same stitch. We chain 2 for the corner, and then I work 3 double crochets into the next stitch as well. So this is my second corner. Three double crochets. Let's see what I got so far. So I have 2 corners and 1 side here. And this is how I will work all around this square. So I will work the corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and I don't skip any stitches here in the middle of the corner. After the corner, I skip 3 stitches, I work 3 double crochets into the 4th one. I skip 3 stitches on the other side as well, and I start my next corner with 3 double crochets in the 4th stitch. If you want to see again how we made the side and the corner, feel free to go back here, rewind, and see how we made this side and this corner, and make the remaining sides and corners exactly the same way. I have worked all around. Now if I turn this around, we can see that I now have a square. And I'm gonna close this round here. So I've just made those last 3 double crochets for the side. And now if I have counted my stitches correctly, I should still have 1, 2, and 3 stitches before this first corner starts. So I'll just go straight into that first stitch there on the outside edge to close my round. And then I slip stitch my way to the next corner. So I make a slip stitch into the next stitch here too. And I make a slip stitch into that corner space. And now I'm in this corner. And this is where I will start my next round. And now for this granny square, I will work 2 more rounds. And these last 2 rounds are just granny stitches all around. So clusters of 3 double crochet stitches that I work into the spaces between the previous rounds clusters. So with the previous round, we had to be counting those stitches to make sure we place them in the right spots. Well, now these last 2 rounds are super easy compared to that because we just work clusters into the spaces and we don't need to count any individual stitches. So I'm gonna start my first corner right here. I chain 2, which counts as my first double crochet. Then I work 2 more double crochets for this corner cluster. My first corner cluster. I chain 2 for the corner, and then I work 3 more double crochets into the same corner space. And I have my first corner for this side. Then I move on to my first corner for this round. And I move on to the side. And I work 3 double crochets into that space between the previous round's clusters. So it says 3 double crochet stitches straight into that space. There it is, and 3 double crochets into the next space as well. So we will always have 1 more cluster on each side as our square keeps growing. Here we go. I have my 2 side clusters there, and then I'll move into my next corner space. So 3 double crochets. I chain 2 for the corner, and then I work 3 more double crochets into the same corner space to complete my corner. Oops, a little too far there. here we go. So I have these two corners and this side completed. So this is how we work all around. So go ahead and work all around your square. If you need to see again how we made the side and the corner, feel free to rewind and go back here. Watch this side and this corner and make the rest of the square exactly the same way. All right, I have completed this round. The square keeps growing. And I'm gonna close this round exactly the same way I did the previous one. So I slip stitch here into this first stitch there on the outside edge. I slip stitch into the next one. And I slip stitch into the corner space. The reason I do this is because I always like to start, or whenever possible, I like to start my rounds in the corner. So I slip stitch my way there. And then I chain 2. Counts as my first double crochet. And I work 2 more double crochets into this corner space. And that's my first corner cluster. I chain 2 for the corner, and then I work 3 double crochets into the same corner space for the second corner cluster. Here we go. Here's my first corner. And now I just move straight into the next space between the previous round's clusters, and I work 3 double crochets here. So this round is exactly the same as the previous one, with the only difference that we will have one more cluster here on the side. So you know the drill. Go ahead and work all around your square. Just granny stitches all around, chaining 2 in the corners for the corner. So work all around and then meet me back here. All right, I have finalized my last round, and now I will just close this round. I close it the exact same way I did my previous rounds of granny stitches. So into that first stitch there on the outside, slip stitch, chain 1, and then we fasten off. Alrighty. So now here is my Flowering Dogwood granny square for North Carolina and Virginia. The only things that I have left here is weaving in the rest of those ends, which most of them I took care of, but there are still a couple that I need to finish weaving in, and then blocking this square. Now this one here has not been blocked yet either, so I need to block both of these. As we can see, it's pretty neat like this, but I do find that blocking the square just gives it a more finalized look. So that was it for today. I really do hope that you enjoyed making the Flowering Dogwood granny square with me. If you're posting pictures of your square on Instagram, please tag my account. I would love to see those pictures. So my account is at Wildflower and Stitch. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, please make sure also to subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment, like this video, share with a crochet friend. All of those things do help me a lot. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.